You ever seen someone try so hard to run the world that they end up slipping on their own rule book right into the lake? Yeah, that's how it started, and if you've ever tangled with an HOA, you know exactly the type I'm talking about. But Sophie Ward, our newly crowned queen of bylaws and clipboards, she was something else. A walking memo with sunglasses for armor, convinced she owned not just her front yard, but every inch of the lake my family's called home for 3 generations. So picture this, Saturday morning, sunrise so sharp it could cut you, and I'm sitting on my porch with coffee that's just barely too hot to drink, watching a full-blown spectacle unfold down at my dock. There's Sophie, marching like General Patton, barking orders at some poor tow truck guy who already looks like he regrets waking up that day. That boat's too big. It blocks community access. Remove it immediately, she snaps. And as fate, or maybe karma, would have it, her own board member slips off the dock, shoes and all, right into the shallows. Splash loud enough the whole neighborhood's heads turn, and laughter breaks out before anyone remembers they're supposed to be afraid. Sophie's face goes from executive pink to fire alarm red, and she slaps a bright orange violation sticker on my boat, only for it to curl off instantly and stick like a curse right to her own shoe. And as she's struggling to peel it off, here comes my brother, Sheriff Tom, rolling up with that slow swagger only a small-town cop can pull off. "Ma'am, you got paperwork for this?" he asks. She doesn't, and suddenly you can feel it, the shift. It's not about the boat, not anymore. The HOA's been trespassing on my family's lake for years, and today's the day they figure it out. I should pause here, drop your city and local time in the comments if you know HOA pain. And if you're a fan of sweet justice, you're not going to want to miss where this is headed. Out here, lake air is cold and sharp, smells like cedar and granite, and every morning, the fog lifts off the water like it's pulling the blanket off a secret. Peace, around these parts, is a thing you choose every day. My grandfather used to say, "You treat the lake with respect, and the lake gives it back." He handed me that lesson with a folded envelope and a look that said, "One day, you'll need this." I didn't get it at 14. Now, with Sophie's circus in my front yard, I do. Her world runs on fonts and bylaws, and the illusion that authority is something you can buy at Office Depot, blazer heels the whole 9 yards. But the water? The water doesn't care what you're wearing. It only cares if you show up when a kid flips his kayak or if you haul the trash out when the barrel's overflowing. Out here, stewardship is the only rule that matters, a word I'm not sure Sophie could spell, much less live by. The deed to my family's lake is older than any house here. It's vellum, creased, smells like cedar and old ink, and it spells out, plain as day, who owns what. Over 100 years, we've let neighbors fish, picnic, launch their kids into the water. I've fixed more outboard motors and pulled more stuck anchors than I can count, and nobody ever paid a dime. The HOA, though, 25 years ago, they started out just organizing landscaping, snow plowing. Nothing more. But rules are like weeds, and when Sophie showed up, they multiplied. Suddenly, it was all about uniform porch lights and mailbox paint, fines for lawn height, even a ban on a child soccer goal, disturbing the aesthetic harmony. That was the moment the wheels started squeaking. I ignored it for a while. I was running the bait shop, keeping the peace. Then came the letters. "Dear occupant," the first one said, "Burn that for kindling." The next 2 I kept. One in my boat. The other was a shoreline management plan that sounded a lot like annexation and pearls. I started keeping a notebook, writing down every interaction, every weather change, every time someone came by grumbling about a new fine. You want to win a paper war? You meet paper with paper. Neighbors started showing up. Jim from the Yellow Ranch, Linda with the wind chimes, Nancy, who bakes banana bread so good you want to confess your sins. They all had stories. Sophie with her tape measure, Sophie with her clipboard, Sophie threatening liens and lectures. I just listened, kept my coffee hot, and gathered screenshots, letters, even voicemail recordings. I wasn't spoiling for a fight, just waiting for the right moment. Because bullies always perform too long. The mask never just slips, it falls. Then came a call from the bank. The marina, badly run and loud as a parade, was going under, and the bank wanted to know if I knew any buyers for the mortgage note. I might, I said, sent over the paperwork. That's how you handle a shifting shoreline. You don't shout, you gather, you study, and you buy the sand before the storm. Meanwhile, the HOA kept trying to flex, their emails getting bolder. My dock impeded communal visibility, my Coast Guard registration incompatible with subdivision values. That one made me laugh so hard I spit coffee on the porch rail. Then the showdown. Saturday morning, Sophie arrives with backup. 2 board members with matching polos, the same poor tow truck driver, and a binder stuffed with what I can only imagine was a greatest hits collection of HOA printouts. Mr. Sanders, she called, all fake sugar. I trust you're ready to cooperate this time. Morning, Sophie, I said, not moving from my chair. The fish are biting, but the nonsense still stinks. She lost her smile. Her argument? The HOA has jurisdiction over all properties that fall within the community view corridor. I laughed. Couldn't help it. Show me, I said. She couldn't. Pages flapped. Deborah, the decorum enforcer, whispering in her ear. The crowd, now gathering for the morning's entertainment, roared when I compared her view corridor to sacrificing goats on even number Tuesdays. She tried anyway, ordered Mark the tow truck out to hook my boat, just as Tom showed up again. Ma'am, he drawled, this is private property, and you're trespassing. Her jaw dropped. He's obstructing community access. To what? Tom asked. His own dock? His own water? Phones came out. The sticker landed on her shoe again. You might want to check your jurisdiction, I said. Seems it stuck to your foot. By then, everyone knew. Even the tow truck guy had had enough. He dropped the chain and muttered, told you so. Tom gave one final warning. Step foot here again without a court order, and you'll be cited for trespass. Sophie stormed off, the crowd cheering like it was July 4th. But you know how people like Sophie are. When they lose, they don't back down, they double down. Sure enough, the next week she returned, this time with even more pageantry. A so-called lawyer, a cameraman, the whole circus. I was leaning on my porch rail, coffee in hand, waiting, and as she rattled off legal codes and community aesthetics, a Coast Guard van rolled up. Yes, the real deal. Seemed someone had called about an unauthorized maritime seizure. When the officer asked who had jurisdiction, Sophie tried to bluff. The lake's within view of our subdivision. He just looked at her and said, so's the moon, ma'am. Doesn't mean you could ticket it. The laughter that followed shook the dock. And then the twist, the Coast Guard confirmed my paperwork, called my dock and boat 100% private. Sophie's binder, full of highlighted web pages and Wikipedia printouts, got nudged into the lake, kids fishing out soggy pages and reading phrases like visual harmony enforcement out loud for the crowd. She tried to retreat with dignity, but wet heels have a sense of humor, and by the time she slipped on the slope, the whole thing was caught on camera, slow motion and all. That clip hit 500,000 views overnight. The memes came next, Sophie in a pirate hat, HOA code as a scroll, and Jim's Hardware offering anti-slip boat wax as a special. And just when you'd think the story's over, the real bomb drops. The HOA's financials have been teetering for months, and the marina note, the one I quietly bought, closed under my new LLC. Sophie didn't know it yet, but every time she strutted around the marina, she was standing on land her HOA now owed me money for. The irony? She'd planned a community protest at the marina for Saturday noon. I scheduled a community barbecue. Same time, same place. Sheriff Tom stood by the grill, rib bone in hand, waving hello as Sophie tried to rally the crowd with her megaphone, only to be drowned out by the band and laughter. When she tried to flash a fake legal letter, I flipped it over and showed the template sample watermark on the back. Tom grinned, because distributing falsified legal documents is a crime, ma'am. Right about then, Mark the tow truck driver, bless his soul, hooked up her SUV and towed it off the property on my request while the cameras rolled. The crowd chanted, "Tow the Queen." Sophie's megaphone rolled off the dock into the lake. By nightfall, the news ran the headline. HOA president's protest turns into lakefront festival disaster. But pride rears its head again. She tried to sue. Unlawful possession, obstruction, harassment. We showed up to court, and the judge, old Whitaker, who once fished with my grandfather, asked to see deeds, surveys, proof. Sophie had printouts and newsletters. Grace Holloway, my attorney, rolled in a single box. The original deed, notarized surveys, chain of title going back a century. The judge's verdict was swift. The lake is privately owned by Mr. Sanders. The HOA has overstepped. Their lawsuit dismissed, legal fees awarded, and a court order barring the HOA from any claim over the lake. The eviction that followed wasn't just an end, it was a beginning. Sheriff Tom delivered the order, deputies cleared out every laminated HOA sign and fake permit, and the Coast Guard poured lake water over the pile, letting the ink run down the boards. Kids chanted, "Freedom Lake," and the whole town cheered. Even a would-be investor slinked off, realizing he'd tried to buy air. That night, the lake shone with lanterns and music, laughter echoing across the water. The HOA was finished. No more fines, no more threats, just neighbors coming together, planting little cardboard flags that read Freedom Lake and no more fines. When Tom called the next morning, laughing, the county wanted to officially rename it Lake Sanders. My grandfather would have loved it. And for the first time in years, the only authority left was kindness, and the only rule that mattered was respect. If you've ever fought your own HOA tyrant, ever stood your ground against someone mistaking noise for power, you know this victory wasn't just mine, it was everyone's. So tell me, what's your HOA horror story? Drop it in the comments. Let's remind each other that peace, when you finally earn it, is the sweetest kind of justice there is. And if you want to see what happens when the next Karen tries to take on a lake, you know where to find me.